My name is Minjung, and I am PhD program at Chonnam National University. Thank you for having me on. Today, I would like to talk about ESG risks in international business, especially a case of Posco with Myanmar's political uncertainty. Professor Su-Yol and I worked together on this paper. Before describing Posco global business in Myanmar and ESG risk, I want to introduce a little bit of corporate Posco background and purpose of the study. First, Posco is world's fourth largest steelmaker in 2010. It was the world's most significant steel manufacturing company by market value. Second, the study deals with business risks and decisions caused by political instability, such as Myanmar's military dictatorship and coup. Third, this is actually the business case study. The purpose of this study is discussion. We are not discussing today, but you will pick up 4 different discussion points at the end of this presentation. As you know, discussion helps each group member explore and discover personal meanings of a text through interaction with other people. Please keep in mind that this study is not intended to suggest statements or arguments about accusing the company wrongdoing, but rather to think questions about this issue for professors and students. Moreover, our intention is for Posco to review the potential ESG risks and readers to think about this political risk issue in Posco Myanmar case. Let me briefly explain ESG. ESG means using environmental, social governance factors to evaluate companies and countries on how far they are with sustainability. ESG originally started with a tool for measuring and evaluating the performance of CSR, which is corporate social responsibility. So the evaluation area was classified into E, S, and G. So what this study mainly deals with political issue, which can be seen as being included in social issues. Social factors are related with how business interacts with communities where it operates. It also looks at internal policies related to labor, diversity, and inclusion policies, among others. Thus, ESG issues have become much more critical for long-term investors and consumers. So what is the benefit of ESG risk management? ESG facilitates top-line growth in the long run, attracts talented people, reduces costs, and builds a sense of trust among consumers. In sum, ESG is a risk-related thing, and ESG is always potential for companies expanding their global business. I will focus more on, detail about social risk in Posco Myanmar business. ESG risk of Posco Myanmar project. The first one is involvement with the military for business entry and funding for the military. You can see the table, right? There are actually 5 company lists, Korean company lists. Actually, these are almost 11 company lists, but 5 are Korean companies, and the 2 are actually the real estate companies, and 1 is apparel, Pan Pacific Apparel Company, and the rest highlighted 2 companies are the Posco related companies. And you can see the company list MEHL, Myanmar Economic Holdings Public Company Limited, and MEC, which means Myanmar Economic Corporation, 2 major conglomerates run by the military through the Ministry of Defense. These all companies are joint ventures. The joint venture partners have provided investment capital and have been responsible for running the business. So the ownership of 70% of Myanmar Posco and 30% is MEHL. The numbers are quite clear and transparent, and it's a positive aspect. But the problem is that all shares in MEHL are held and managed by current or former military officers, regiments, and groups and organizations led by former service members. According to US Embassy Diplomatic Cable, MEHL and MEC function as key components of the elaborate system of help the Tatama DAO uses to main power. Yeah. The second issue is related with Su natural gas project with Myanmar Oil and Gas Enterprise. The acronym is MOGI. Su natural gas project is multi-field integrated development consisting of Sue, Pyu, and Mia offshore gas fields located offshore Rakhine State in blocks A1 and A3 of the Bay of Bengal, Myanmar. The project is being developed in a 3-phase scheme by a consortium of 6 companies led by Posco subsidiary Daewoo International. You can see Moji highlighted, 15% of share. So Moji, Myanmar Oil Gas Enterprise is state-owned enterprise. State-owned enterprises play a dominant role in Myanmar's economy, generating about half of the government's revenue. Moji, their finances remain unclear, and it's very likely to be connected to the military. This is the second issue of Posco Myanmar. And the third one is actually the hotel business of Posco International. Myanmar military junta owns the site of the Lotte Hotel in Yangon, and the rent payment goes to the bank account of the Ministry of Defense. Moreover, the contract is signed with the general office affiliated with the Ministry of Defense. The most important part is that build, operate, transfer. It means that Posco builds and operates and transfer to the Ministry of Defense after 50 years. Thus, ownership of the hotel will be transferred to the military after 50 years, thereby contributing to their profits. The UN fact-finding mission on Myanmar has raised this issue. And the number 4, and the financial institutions putting pressure on the company. The Dutch pension fund, APG, raised questions about Posco's commitments to responsible investment, saying that a lot of investors are putting pressure on the company. Reuters reported that Sweden's public pension fund, which owns Posco share, asked the firm about its investments in Myanmar out of concern over human rights issues. Thus, ESG risk management in financial market is critical issue right now. Yeah, I know that Daewoo International is very well known in Myanmar. Posco bought the Daewoo International in 2010. It means that Posco took the ESG risk of Daewoo International. It can be seen Daewoo International ESG risk passed into Posco. So what was the main business of Daewoo International in Myanmar at that time? It was the Myanmar gas business. When Daewoo International came to the sales market in 2010, Posco actively entered the acquisition competition. The main reason was to run the Myanmar gas business. The second issue of Daewoo International was human rights issues. The human rights issues emerged during the Myanmar resource development. In order to facilitate resource exploration and development, the forest was removed to damage the ecosystem and drive fishers out of their homes. Although these are not serious levels of human rights violation, there was an argument that the independent monitoring group should be created to prevent human rights violations and to prevent them from being related to military dictatorship. Unokal is a good case to explain serious human rights violation. Posco can learn a lesson from them. When Unokal, which is U.S. oil and gas company, partnered with notorious Burmese military to build a gas pipeline, knowing the military would commit human rights abuses, Myanmar group filed a landmark lawsuit against Unokal. So yeah. So let's check out the responses based on the timeline. So Daewoo, international period responses. They said that we opened all the necessary information on a development project. We also had a meeting and have been interviewed by related groups. We also visited the site in person and listened to the opinions of local residents. Daewoo International has been actively engaged in social contribution activities by building and operating 22 schools, 9 healthcare centers and hospitals under the socio-economic program. They insisted that the criticism of forced migration and human rights violation of residents was not substantial and not real. And Posco's responses, the proceeds from the gas are not paid to Moji, known to be owned by the military. It enters to the Myanmar Foreign Trade Bank, which the Myanmar government separately manages, and the money is used as a government budget. Various ministries will use the government budget. So Posco is not involved in where and how the money will be spent in the government. So yes, and the last one, the ESG information has been disclosed in various areas through corporate reports published annually by Posco. So actually we've checked out the report, but little has been mentioned critical issue about the process of overseas resource development. So yeah, what do you think Posco Myanmar should choose? What choice should Posco make over this political risk? There are 4 options to consider. The first one is, if you shake hands with your blood-stained hand, you will inevitably get blood-stained. Yeah. So business withdrawal is necessary. Posco Myanmar should stop their business and go back to Korea. The reason is for this position is that, if the project becomes a funding source for the military, then, it must be withdrawn even if it's not intended. Yeah. And then the second position is ESG risk response also needs a strategy. Cost and effectiveness should be analyzed. This approach is based on the perspective of triple bottom line. The triple bottom line is a business concept that posits firms should commit to measure their social environmental impact in addition to their financial performance, rather than solely focusing on generating profits or something. So yeah, revealing clearly ESG issues and finding solutions case by case seems to be necessary, the second position. And the third position is, the controversy was overpackaged. It's too much. You can ignore it. What has been said over time is forgotten. Time is a great healer. The reason behind this argument is unlike the noisy situation in the media, there's no impact on business ESG. So Daewoo International had an issue related with actually the child labor problems in Uzbekistan cotton project, but it did not affect the stock price either. So probably the stock price only affected by the readjustment of the expectation of Myanmar's gas field or something. So yeah, this is the third issue and argument. And then the fourth argument is the last one. The politics is politics and business is business. It's two separate things. So even if Moji is included in economic sanctions in the United States and Europe, it's not directly related to gas production and sales. So it's difficult to avoid collaborating with military regimes, some countries. So yeah, Myanmar gas field project is a successful representative case of overseas resource development by domestic companies. So if it is closed or withdrawn, other countries like India or China will join and involve. Yeah, so this case actually does not represent Posco general ESG management. It does not intend to illustrate either effective or ineffective handling of a managerial situation and judgment, but this is just a case discussion and regarding business ethics according to the teaching plan. So that's it. Thank you. Yeah. Do you have any questions or concerns about this?
Thank you for your good presentation, and it's very informative, and it's very, I think it's very timely issues. And then, if there are any questions, raise your hands or speak up your voice. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. Is there any questions on this presentation? Okay, I think the presentation is perfect, and so there is no question on the presentation. Okay, and then after we wrap up the whole presentation, we have a time to ask questions, and then if it is okay, and we have a time to. Think about this issue and have a question. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for your good presentation again. And let's invite the second presenter, the Dr. Yoo-sik of Kyunghee University of Korea. The topic is text mining analysis on ESG legal acts of European Commissions. Yeah. Let's go ahead, Dr. Kim.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. Can everybody see my screen? Yeah, okay. Right, let me just set up. Okay, good afternoon. Let me introduce myself first. And I'm Yoo-sik Kim, as the PhD student of International Economics and Trade at the Kyunghee University. So thanks for giving me this opportunity to present here with the subject of text mining analysis on ESG-related legal acts and discussions in European Commission. Actually, this presentation is a type of progress reports that share current status on the studies. So it's still very much work in progress. So this is really an opportunity to get feedback that I can go back in and actually be revised and updates with it. So I'm going to present a brief overview first, starting with research background, literature review, and research methodology, and By following up, I will present the interim level of result based on text mining analysis and with interim implications, and shortly mentioning the conclusion with further research process. So ESG considerations have been high on business agenda for several years now, but in-depth discussions, strategic discussions among stakeholders such as investors and legislators has significantly increased past year. So it is one of the hot topics in private sector. And so the Korean multinational corporations are scrambling to launch their own ESG committee for responding on the requirements for the non-financial information disclosure. So European Commission is leading the ESG agenda for achieve their strategic goal as well as SDGs and the commitment from Paris Agreement. So EU announced the European Green Deal in 2019, and relevant regulations and directives such as NFRD, which is the non-financial reporting directive, CSRD is a corporate sustainability reporting directive, and SFRDR is a sustainable finance disclosure regulations are adopted. And after publishing the European Green Deal, the EU is additionally adopts the intermediate proposals named the Fit for 55 in July 14th of this year, which aims to cut greenhouse gases by 55% compared to the level of 1990 by 2030. So like I said in the earlier, the issue of ESG is inevitable and has become a key consideration of global investors. So majority of the global investors consider ESG factors in their investment portfolio, and it became a main agenda in their board meetings as well. So although the ESG regulations are only applied to some designated sectors so far, like the financial sector, it is highly adoptable to extend to other industries as well. So business area, especially the multinational corporations, are rapidly responds to the shift of investment perspective and approaches. So far, the various perspectives are prevalent in the research area. Given that the wideness and broadness of ESG coverage, the area of research are also diverse. So in these context, one question pop up in my head. So how do I start looking into the ESG? So where to start? So that is just my initial question. So one of the good starting points is questioning how do we view the ESG as a tool. So some researchers and business folks stand in an opportunistic view, which legislated ESG regulations provide a strong motivation, securing companies' competitive advantage, while others regard this term as another type of non-tariff barrier to protect domestic companies. So in addition, ESG as an effective tool to achieve the greater good, like SDGs, while others regard this ESG as just a regulation that all the players should follow forcefully. So given that there is no panacea in ESG, no agreed standard or indicators, and then exist, and then limited research has been done to analyze the underlying concept and major discussion points. I set the key research questions as below with threefold. So first one is what are the underlying keywords in EU ESG and what changes and revisions are expected in the future? So by narrowing down to the EU ESG only, I'm going to look into the keywords underlying in their communication and ongoing discussions for the future amendment. The second question is how does the ESG related documents categorize and what topic relations observed among categories? So since it contains the various issue and subjects, so it is worth mining the key topics and defining their relations. My last question is, so what are the key features that corporates from external area I should consider? So with the view between the type of non-tariff barrier and then the tool for the opportunity, the research will analyze some implications that corporates keep in mind. So from the literature review, ESG discussion trend in academia clearly proves again the variety of the topics, and in the national level and corporate level of approach and research mainly focus on the relationship between the ESG scores and then the corporate financial performances. So the Avramov's research mentioned that the lack of ESG information in their disclosure increased the uncertainty, which weakened the sustainable investment. So Peterson's study also divided into three corporate groups that ESG aware and ESG motivated and ESG unaware. So we can also observe some international level of discussions with kind of comparative studies between US and EU and Korean Green New Deal policies. And the other one is a causality model of the ESG and financial performances, and not only just in the national level, but also in the regional level, like in Latin America. In fact, ESG issue is not brand new, and it examined actually separately for a long time. So for example, the carbon pricing and renewable energies, the climate change issue have already been discussed. And so do the social and governance sector as well. So it clearly shows that the researchers have focused a particular agenda only, while the lack of studies of ESG as a whole and the concept level of discussions. So, and there are literatures specifically targeted on the European Green Deal as below. So the Green Deal as an opportunity and or the linkage of the environmental tax issue with the corruption as a governance issues as well. So now I'm going to present the research methodology as pre-process of text mining. So I defined 9 key anchor documents for extracting critical keyword for searching documents. So EU announced the 6 mission priorities for 2019 to 2024, and the European Green Deal is one of them. ESG is on the sustainable finance sector as one of the pillars to achieve the European Green Deal. So far, the EU consider the ESG issue is as an umbrella in the European Green Deal. So based on documents that the European Commission recently announced regarding ESG, I defined 13 keywords as below, as in the box. So data collection is from the EU WALEX, which is the non-official website of EU, by filtering from 2019 to present. And I collected the one written in English, which the keywords that I mentioned previous slide, including ESG, corporate sustainability, sustainable investment plan, and taxonomy, and so on. Type of generated documents and posted documents are various, but categorized into 2 groups. So one is a legally binding documents such as regulation, a directive, a decision, and guideline. Although these documents are slightly different range of the legal application. I group them to investigate what items are determined. So the other is non-binding documents, the recommendation, opinion, notes, impact assessment, report, and others. So these documents have no legal effect, and it somehow affects the future progress and future amendments of the documents. I group them to investigate what items are discussing. Okay. So with applying 13 keywords, the 386 documents are searched through EUR-LEX system. By ruling out the non-English written documents, the duplicated documents, and the documents not containing any relevant information with less than 1 page or with figures or tables only. So majority of the documents are posted of both HTML type and PDF files, but only 4 documents are not recognizable from IT program, since the documents are PDF file with just a scanned image attachment. As a result, 89 documents are selected as a sample. This is the table of the 89 documents breakdown. So I segmented non-binding into 2 classes. So I named class A as a key documents that directly affect to the amendment of legal acts or that are on the legislation process already. The class A documents are classified the type of opinion, communication, and resolution type of documents, and the rest of the documents are classified as B as a general document. Since the European Green Deal formally unveiled in December 2019, the relevant documents are conducted mainly from 2020, as you can see in the table. Yeah, as you can see in the brief methodology, by data cleansing process, tokenizing words from each document, the lemmatization for data normalization. In addition, defining stop words with a commonly used one, such as or the or I. And I added also the legal terms and general word used in legal reports, such as the article, institution, and European Union regulation, information, and so on. So in this study, word cloud and then the LDA topic modeling analysis are applied to capture underlying concept. Now, so let's begin with the word cloud. The word cloud analysis simply show the domain of the keywords by frequency of use. As you can see the image, we intuitively recognize that the climate is the most frequent word used in the sample documents. So together with the word change, the documents are heavily considered climate change issues. Companies' risks are the top frequent words that we can think about. The risk management of climates are now becoming a mainstream risk and return issue. Another set of word cloud appeared. So I executed the word cloud separately from legally binding documents and non-binding documents. And here's some interesting result appears. Both group highlights risk, climate change and market, and the documents heavily focus on the environment issue in ESG, such as climate, emissions, and energy. So however, if we look at the insurers and insurance in the column non-binding, despite their high frequencies, they are heavily mentioned in just non-binding documents, which leads some meaningful clue that insurance issue or industry are very active issue for now, and the discussion is still ongoing when it comes to ESG. Now, this is the result table from the topic modeling analysis, and it is still arguable that how many topics are the most accurate to pick up the topic, which means it needs further verification and validation process to optimize the number of topics by machine learning algorithm. However, if we look at the lineup of each topic, the topics are distinguished based on the key committees from EU, such as EESC and ECSC and EIOPA. So in topic number 2, the EESC covers economic and social issues by linkage with the SDGs, and topic 4 covers coal, steel, iron issues that may heavily environment sensitive industries on carbon emissions. By cross-referencing with the word cloud analysis, topic 3 is related to insurance issue. And topic 7 looks environmental issues by taking the climate, emission, green and energy. And topic 6 provided some rationales that what corporates should consider. Not only the financial aspect based on the IFRS, it is important evaluating the social aspect such as workers and non-financial reporting directive in NFRD. Now the interim level of implications. So from the text mining analysis, 4 important implications have been analyzed so far. So as we can see in the first, the documents from 2019 to present heavily focused on climate change. The issue of climate change itself is very huge, and then given that European Green Deal is one of the major pillar of EU for the mid-long-term strategy, this analysis strengthened the EU's strategic focus and declaration on what they are looking into. So such perspectives strongly align to the Paris Agreement's transition and then SDG Goal 13 of climate actions. So EU documents clearly indicate their consideration of execution of the broad global agenda into their territories in practice. The second, which is related to the first point, the document highlighted non-financial aspects becoming a mainstreaming in their discussions. Especially the word companies are frequently appeared in environmental terms such as emission and energy. So the legal documents expect companies to evaluate their values with the lens of environment, SDG, and do no significant harm principle. Third one is, well, overall perspective of the document is more risk perspective rather than opportunistic view. However, given the nature of the legal documents characteristics, it clearly has the regulatory framework. So the opportunistic view will be mainly coming from the other sector, like private sectors as well. So at last, there are ongoing movements in insurance sectors regarding ESG. So it is worth looking into the multidimensional agenda as the regulations, including taxonomy, firstly appears to financial sectors. This result implicates the insurance sector's response on the transitional approach, or the insurance will be increasingly vital scheme or tools when it comes to the documents or companies regard ESG as at risk. So there might be an opportunity for insurance sector to provide safety net for the companies and hedge the negative impact from the ESG risk exposure. So here's the last slide I have, and then because as I mentioned, it's the quite draft version of my research, and additional research and data gathering will be following up. And I'm still thinking whether I expand the data set to the very key documents, but which is not posted in EU WorldX. And then there are also the other methodology, the keyword network analysis. Then the optimization of the current modeling is also required. And as the insurance that is coming up in the very keyword in ongoing process, so in-depth analysis of the current discussions in insurance sector is also important for the research process. So thank you very much for listening my presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your very interesting presentation, Dr. Kim. If you have any questions about this presentation, then please raise your hands. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think it is also the perfect presentation. Yeah. Thank you for your good presentation again, Dr. Kim. Then let's move on. Third presentation, Dr. Hlaing Oo, Yangon University of Economics. The topic is the effect of organizational support on job satisfaction of employees during COVID-19 pandemic in Myanmar. Yeah, Dr. Hlaing Oo, let's move on your presentation. Yeah.
Hello. Hello, good morning, good evening, our professors and all my friends. Today, I would like to present about my research paper. The title is Effect of Organizational Support on Job Satisfaction of Employees During COVID-19 Pandemic in Myanmar. Here is the main content that I would like to present. There are 6 parts: interaction, objective of the study, scope and method of the study, literature review of the study, data analysis, and conclusion. Today, the COVID-19 is a global health emergency, and that caused very severe and dread uncertainty in the entire world, including Myanmar. It has very significant impacts on economic, culture, society, and businesses. So for the businesses, for employees, it is important during this crisis time to value and support vulnerable employees, adapt and flex during this crisis time. So organizational support is very important during these times. Employers need to support their workforce to survive their businesses. And then another point is job satisfaction of employees is a very important factor for business successful. An individual employee who happy in his job, they will do a good job and they will be dedicated to their jobs and their company. So it is critical for employees to understand which elements and which factors are affecting their employees' job satisfaction, because employee job satisfaction will also impact on the organization performance and long-term survivability. So my research is to investigate in all private sector employees in Myanmar by highlighting the link between organization support and job satisfaction, and then organizational commitment behavior during COVID-19 pandemic period in Myanmar. Here is the objectives of the study. There's 2 specific objectives. The first is to examine the relationship between organizational support and job satisfaction of employees. The second objective is to analyze the relationship between job satisfaction and employee commitment. This slide shows the scope and method of the study. I used primary data and secondary data to analyze and interpret the situation. I collect primary data with structured questionnaires, and participants are employees who are working in various private sector organizations in Myanmar. I set up 95 confidence level interval, and margins of error is 5%. And I collected 3 A4 respondents to know the situation of their job satisfaction and commitment. And I use descriptive research method and PSI correlation to examine the relationship between the variables. So this slide shows the literature review of the study. I based on the assumption of the organizational support theory. The most supports for their employees by the organization. Employee reciprocity, commit to their jobs and to their commitment by mentally and physically. So based on this principle, POS, passive organizational supports, will be effectively enhanced if employees view organizational rewards and favorable job conditions, such as pay, promotion, and job enrichment, and involving in organizational policy making as voluntary behaviors of organization. By doing which, employees perceive they are very valuable and respected by the organizations, and they will exchange, they will behave valuable behavior to their organizations, and they will contribute more to the organization. From the HR perspective, HRM's practices that should support the company business strategies and employee performance, such as recruitment and selecting employee policy, training and development practices, performance management practices, remunerations and reward systems, and employer relationships. If these all systems are good and better treat to their employee will positively behave and satisfied at their jobs. So an organization works best when all these practices and the all practices are well managed. If they manage these practices, employees feel positive about their jobs, and this can be said that they get job satisfaction. Job satisfaction is the best predictor of positive work-related outcome, and it can increase performance, organizational performance, and employee performance, like increased productivity, increased share. So to face the very challenging time, COVID-19 pandemic period, the roles of employee in the organization is most important. So organizational support systems are well established and developed to satisfy employee and to commit employee. This increase organizational competitiveness. So the conceptual framework of this study is based on this idea, and that's our precedents in figure 1. There's three variables as organizational support variable. The first is organizational head and care support. The second is organizational staff retention. It means employee retention practices. And the third is employee training and development. And these also are independent variables, and dependent variable is job satisfaction. And then I would like to know if employees satisfy their jobs, whether they will behave commitment to their jobs and their organization. This is my conceptual framework data from previous research. So for the data analysis, I would like to run the data with SPSS software, and I like the reliability. I ran the reliability test to know the consistency and reliability of data. So this slide shows the Cronbach alpha values. All are greater than 0.7. So the results show that all variables are consistency and reliable to conduct the research. So this is the finding from descriptive analysis. It means it's demographic variable demographic data for the respondents. I found that most of their participants are from the various industry sectors, and most of their participants are working at sales or marketing departments. Sales and marketing departments, and most of them are manager levels, and some are junior staff level. This is the demographic conditions of the participants. Now, I'd like to present employee perception on organizational support factors, job satisfaction, and organizational commitment. There is a show that all the mean value is above average. They are more than three. So most of employees are satisfying their organizational supports, especially in organizational healthcare and hygiene supports. This is the highest mean value. It has 3.45, and they satisfying their job, their current job. It shows results at 3.39, and they intention to stay their organizations, and they would like to commit their job. Now, this is their correlation analysis between organizational supports and job satisfaction. So their p-value is less than all p-values are less than 0.005. This means the correlation is statistically significant, and all their correlation value is greater than 0.70. It's a high positive correlation between organizational supports and job satisfaction. It means organization provide more support, better support to their employee during this crisis time. Employee get satisfied more and more towards their jobs and toward their jobs. And the next slide is present the correlation between job satisfaction and organizational commitment. The data show that the two variables has positively strong relationship between these two variables. Employees' job satisfaction have positively relationship organizational commitment. If organization develop job satisfaction practices, and so employee will do and will commit medically and physically work to their work. So as the final part of my presentation, this is my conclusion. From the analysis, it is found that there is strong relationship between organizational support and job satisfaction during this time in Myanmar. The research showed that more support to organizational healthcare and hygiene support, organizational staff retention, employee training and development, the more satisfying to employees during this time. Especially, health-related supports are those most important to employees during this time. So organizations should more have support to face the risks and challenges of COVID-19, such as to stay home if their employee sick and make rest and take time to recover their mental and physical. And organizations should create awareness of various measures to protect employee health and safety, policy practices and programs. And organization select designated location for meeting, especially to meet with each other, how they design their office and their meeting rooms. And organizations should poster to share information on proper hand washing, and organizations should train employees about signs and symptoms of COVID-19. The second objective of the analysis is the relationship between job satisfaction and employee commitment. Based on the study, there is statistical positive relationship between these two variables. So during this crisis time, organizations need to support intense or emotional, physically to the employee for their lost, their family, and some their emotional illness. Greater by doing so, by supporting emotional and physically to their employee, greater job satisfaction and commitment can be achieved. So by giving more organizational support for employees to be healthy and happy, every business can maintain and develop competitiveness during this time. Thank you. Thank you, my presentation.
Yeah, thank you for your good presentation and time prompt presentation. Thank you. Yeah. Then, if anyone the participant have any questions on this presentation, and raise your hands or speak up your voice. Okay, yeah. Okay, thank you again for Dr. Hlaing Oo for your good presentation. And then we move on to the next presentation. The first presentation is the presenter is Khin Thein, the Yangon University of Economics of Myanmar. The topic is macroeconomic model of institutional reforms influence on economic growth of Myanmar through Economics Freedom Index. Yeah, okay, let's move on your presentation. Dr. Khin Thein, yeah, please.
Good afternoon, Professor and all participants. Firstly, let me introduce myself. I'm Khin Thein, lecturer from Yangon University of Economics. Thank you very much for opportunity to discuss during this conference. Today, I'm here to discuss macroeconomics model of institutional reform influence on economic growth of Myanmar through Economics Freedom Index. In today's presentation, I hope to cover 4 points. The first one is introduction, second is literature review, and third is data and methodology. Fourth, final part is conclusion and discussion. In this paper, I want to present a comprehensive analysis of institutional reforms, and then I define the most important problem and offer appropriate solution. And this aim of this paper is to research theoretically and empirically the impact of institutional reform on Myanmar economic growth from the period from 1996 to 2020. If a country made progress toward development, the country required to make institutional reform. Institutional reform are attempts to change their rules affecting human interaction. Most of the literature set two institutional economics reform. The first one is effect of institutional quality or economics organ, and the second one is effect of institutional reform of macroeconomics indicator. Most of the study examine the impact of both types of institution in economics variable. Myanmar transition began in 2011. The main agendas of economic reform has been building more efficient and competitive business environment. Major aim of Myanmar reform is to improve the business environment. This table shows the Economic Freedom Index of Myanmar from 1996 to 2020. Data sourced from Global Survey. Highest one this variable range from 10 to 100. 10 is the lowest position and 100 is the highest position. Myanmar faced highest trade freedom index in 2016 to 2020. Also, investment interest highest in 2016 to 2020. But financial freedom and property right highest in 1996 to 2000. Before the institutional reform. Literature. Most of the this part is the literature review. Most of the literature examine the effect of economy. through the creation of environmental necessary for prosperity and development. But there's a time lag in implementing the institutional reform and their effects. A slower development process show far-reaching macroeconomic consequences. This part is the most of the literature. They investigate the institutional reform and macroeconomics very well. I skipped this part. Address on most of the literature, this paper attempt to answer the suitable subsequent of reform in Myanmar to boost and sustain its economic growth through economic freedom. Data and this part, that part is data and methodology. In this paper, I used the secondary time series data from 2016 to 2013. So from global survey, in this paper I use 6 variables. The first one is economic freedom index. I use this index to measure the institutional reform impacts on economic growth. Economic freedom index calculate based on 12 qualitative and quantitative variables. They are divided into 4 categories: economic freedom, regulatory efficiency, rules of law, government side, and open market. And the second index is property rights, because property right is important because broad mass of population participate in commercial activity leads to rapid economic growth. The third index is effectiveness of government, and I use government effectiveness, which reflects perception of quality of public service. It is the important in economic institutional reform. Next index is the corruption index, which reflects the subjective view about the levels of corruption. Corruption is the biggest constraint most of the in the institutional reform and political process. The next index is the terms of trade, which represent the iterate voluntarily. The next part is the dummy variable. It represents the institutional reform. If one for after institutional reform, 0 for the post-reform. Methodology. In this theory, I'm applying the autoregressive large model, ARDL model, and error correction model. This equation shows the ARDL model with short-run and long-run estimation. This first part is represents the short-run coefficient. The next part is show the long-run parameter. This is the result of Untitled text. In this paper, I use the augmented fuller text to test the stationary. According to the augmented fuller tests, terms of trade stationary at the level and other variables stationary at the phase differences. So we use the ALDL approach. This is the co-integration test between dependence variable and independent variable. Dependence variable is economic freedom. Independence variable freedom from corruption, government effectiveness, property rights, and terms of trade and institutional reform. According to the result, dependence and independence correlated long-run relationships, because our F-statistic is 4.04, and first upper bound is 3.35. Our F-test is greater than the upper bound 3.35 and lower bound 2.25 at the 10% significantly, and then 5%, 2.26, and lower bound 2.26 and upper bound 3.7 higher than the F-test, less than the F-statistics. This shows there are long-run and short-run relationship between dependence and interdependence variable. According to ALDL model result, the first part show the long-run result and second part show the short-run result. Long-run government expenditure and property right are positively relationship with economic freedom index, but terms of trade negatively relationship with economic freedom index. In the short run, only government efficiency positively related with economic freedom index. Other are not significant. The final part is conclusion. The study found that government efficiency and property right are positively related with economic freedom. This shows capacity of all policy-making institution in Myanmar right now is enough to make reform effective and sustainable growth with economic freedom. At the policy level, adoption of new foreign investment law and several other related laws, such as Myanmar City Investment Law, has an important step forward. So Myanmar focus on political reform and other institutional reform are not able to influence economic growth because other factors are not significant. The results show that overall development strategy need to anchor on inclusive and environmentally sustainable growth. In Myanmar, poverty remains high and there are considerable inequality in access to opportunity and service across regions. Terms of trade. Terms of trade have negative impact on Myanmar economic freedom. This is because Myanmar export income came from natural gas, oil, and agricultural products. These are primary product production. Primary product freedom, economic freedom is negatively correlated. Another evidence is that economic major important reform undertaken in April 2020 made in exchange rates, and they adoption the floating exchange rate system. This system appreciated the Myanmar check during 2006 to 2012. Such appreciation, agriculture and fishery export, as well as labor-intensive export such as garment. This is the main other reason why the terms of trade and Myanmar economic freedom negatively impacts. Unification of exchange rate, initial liberalization of product and factor market, integration in regional market, and modernization of economics, financial institutions and system result in rapid growth 7% per year and measurable improvement in social welfare since 2011. Poverty reduced have during the 2005 and 2017. Myanmar reform undertaken in Myanmar have surprised and critical many. The problems of implementation and rigid bureaucracy frozen in fields of innovation and change. One that away from effect in the time on away. The final set of explanation with locate continue the dirty poverty of Myanmar people and less of any reform, dividend on the country incomplete political reform. Myanmar outcome allow many lives including gender, identity, and citizenship. There are two-way association. Broadly shared economic opportunities are need to reinforce durable peace, best progress in need to for peace and civil liberty of offer economic opportunity and maximize growth share prosperity in Myanmar. According to other results, political reform, institutional reform have no effect on economic growth. The final part show that why Myanmar political institutional reform not affect on Myanmar economic growth. Thank you for your attention. That's all.
Thank you for your very, very informative presentation. Yeah, it's good. It's very timely and it's very important. The presentation for the Myanmar economy. Then, if there are any question about this presentation, and then please raise your hands or speak up your voice. Yeah. Is there any question? No? Yeah. Then I have one question. I have one question for this presentation. It's my major, and I'm very interested on the Myanmar economy. And then I want your answer about the terms of trade. The value of terms of trade is the negative impact on the Myanmar the economic growth. Yeah. Then you explained some factors or the reasons about the result, but I cannot understand that the terms of trade is normally they have the positive impact on the economic growth, but in the case of Myanmar, why in short and long the term is also the negative impact. Is there any the more detailed answer or detailed the description or the reason of this result? Can you?
Yes. Firstly, I very wonder. Firstly, I know terms of trade and economic growth is directly related. I find that most of the literature they said primary product export or high freedom index. This will reduce their price in international market because their export are primary product rice, rubber, like this. This is where highly export reduce their price in international market because there are many computer and agriculture product exporter in the world. So if we reduce more and more, reduce our price and reduce. This way reduce the export price. So terms of trade is reduce price by import price. Reduce the import price, lower the terms of trade. And then the second evidence is integrate 2006 to 2011 Myanmar tech appreciation. Tech appreciation lead to higher the price of our export. This way, our partner country will reduce our export and they buy from other exporter. This way, reduce the volumes of our export. This lead to reduce the terms of trade. I think so.
Oh, okay.
It's okay, no?
Yeah, okay, I can understand it. And I have some I guess some factors on the result of negative effect on the economic growth. And as you said, the exchange rate of Jat versus dollar is also the important factors, I think. Yeah. And as you said, the primary product of Myanmar is the large portion of Myanmar export. It's also the important factor. Yeah. Okay. And I'm so sorry. We must have the last presentation, but the professor Geon-hyeong is on the way to this conference room. On the way. I have heard that he received. He gave me the message he is on the way. He's just he will arrive within the 5 minutes, and just he said to me, just wait on me and for his presentation. Then I think at first we have some the question or the answers session is we must have the before his presentation. So then if on this participant, if there is any question on this for presentation, as if anyone who have any question on this for the presentation, and then ask any question, and if we have any question, raise your hands or speak speak up your voice, and then we have the question session. And now, yeah.
I'm Minjung and curious about the Myanmar's political situation right now. I mean, several months ago, it's a really severe and frightening. But how are you guys doing? Yeah, these days.
What about your opinion? I think we all are still okay. We try to live and try to be happy. It's okay because we are government staff, and that's. I think our difficulty is main factor is COVID-19. That's why it's COVID-19. And the second point is political situation. If we can struggle, if we solve if we reduce COVID-19 rate, we will process our operation fully. Now we can main point is because of COVID.
I see.
Another point.
How's the number of the cases of COVID? Is it still increasing, or decreasing?
No, it's decreasing.
Decreasing.
Less than 5%. Yes, the death rate is to decrease day by day, and now we will open our school and university next month. Yes.
Open. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any questions on this presentation? I have one question to the Dr. Gong. You have divided four cases of the Posco's choice, and I want to listen your opinion. What is your opinion on within the four choices? Yeah.
It's really actually choose one particular the argument as my own, but if I have to choose one is probably question 2 and 4. ESG risk response also needs a strategy, and cost and effectiveness should be analyzed. And number 4, politics and business and business. So maybe these two answers might mixed, and case by case approach might be more reasonable, I think.
Okay. Thank you for your frank answer and your good commentation. Okay, the Professor An is coming. Yeah. Let's move on to our last presentation. The topic is human rights due diligence in supply chain management by the Professor An Geon-hyeong of Kyonggi University of Korea. Yeah. Okay. Professor An, please. Okay, it's good.
Okay. I'm very sorry I was late. I was a meeting at the Korean Export Credit Agency at 2 o'clock, and that meeting was supposed to take place from 2 to 4, but it was concluded at 4:45. So I was so late, and I moved to Trade Tower, Korean World Trade Tower now. It takes around 45 minutes, and then I just arrived at the meeting room of the Korean Commercial Arbitration Board on 43rd floor. The topic that I will speak about today is human rights due diligence in supply chain management. And also I will introduce the latest Korean government's ESG National Action Plan. So probably human rights management was quite prevailed on since 2018, and ESG was prevailed since at the end of last year. But ESG is not new, actually. The concept and the word of ESG was introduced firstly in 2005. And in 2006, the UN officially introduced the concept ESG. And then, well, until now, in Korea, the responsible business conduct and business and human rights were quite prevailed until up to now. But ESG was very getting popular by two big guys. First one is Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, which is the biggest asset management company. And another one is Korean conglomerate CEO, Choi Tae-won of SK Group. He became a chairman of Korean the Korean Association of Industry and the Commerce and Industry, KCCI. They were sort of like propaganda speakers. So they try to promote ESG concepts all around Korea, nationwide. So human rights due diligence was a core element of human rights management and business and human rights and responsible business conduct. And due diligence should be conducted by or throughout its company business, and also plus supply chain too throughout the world. So I'll introduce about the reason why human rights issue was so emerged recently. So recently, an issue of human rights abuse emerged as a serious social problem in Korea, probably last year. we call it 갑질 in Korean. Probably every Korean knows about that word. These are bad words. The 갑질 incident of Namyang Dairy Products Company Limited toward their distributor has brought about consumers boycott and resulted in being deprived of the position of the industry leader. And also Korean Air. Some Korean call that company now as Nuts Air. Korean Air families, nut rage and butter rage incidents has led to the failure of the owner's reappointment as inside director of Korean Air in 2019. This accident brought about the stewardship code in Korea. So under these circumstances, 2018 was a very important year in human rights, especially regarding business. The National Human Rights Commission, NHRC, has published and distributed human rights management manual for public organizations to 988 public organizations and enterprises in Korea. So business and human rights were very well known to public sector since 2018 in Korea. And then since 2020, ESG concept, especially ESG investment, was combined with this trend of business and human rights and responsible business conduct. So I think my observation is that ESG was so popular, too well known to almost every Korean, because every media captured, featured the ESG almost every day. So since this, the NHRC and Ministry of Justice of Korea promoted this concept and human rights management, and then also they include the index of human rights management in the assessment of for public organizations and public enterprises in Korea. So public side sector should establish the human rights management regime, and then also conduct business and human rights due diligence. And then the government, and especially NHRC, their strategy is to make public sector to establish the human rights business management regime, and then spill over to private sector, naturally. But the problem is COVID-19. Since last year, Ministry of Justice tried to push the concept, the business and human rights management to private sector. But the problem is, it's not a good time for businesses. They are suffering from other, elements, now, but it's a very important time now to push more the business human rights management and responsible business conduct and ESG investment in Korea, because let me introduce the latest government's public announcement on ESG strategy. Probably some professionals who are very interested in ESG, they must be aware of this announcement. I will show you in full. It's a very important thing. This, okay, where is it? Okay, can you see? Right, Korean government jointly, all the ministries of Korean government has announced the promotion plan for ESG infrastructure last August this year. This means that ESG was recognized as a core agenda for this sustainable development goal in the post-corona era. So government has publicly announced that, well, ESG is not just a catchphrase anymore. This is a core policy for every ministry of Korean government. So I can see the big pillars. First one is for companies, businesses. So they must establish ESG management, and Korean government should try for ESG management proliferation. Second one is ESG investment proliferation. So first one is ESG management for businesses. Second one is ESG investment for financial institutions. So when we take a look at ESG management, the plans in details, we can divide into three categories. First one is boosting ESG management public announcement. So all the companies should disclose their ESG management activities. So Korean government will prepare KESG guideline. As you know, the guidelines and ESG indexes are so various and different, and that's why companies or people or financial institution cannot evaluate directly among the businesses which businesses companies are doing good ESG management or not. So standard should be very urgent. ESG standard or index should be prepared very soon. And second one is public announcement duty to listed companies in Korean stock exchange. And third one is to facilitate companies' autonomous public announcement. So these three one is sort of like a sort of communication and to rate or score or evaluate the company's ESG management. Second one is, well, the big companies, they are preparing and establishing ESG strategy and regime well. The problem is SMEs. So Korean government has a strategy to enhance SMEs ESG capacity. So capacity building should be very necessary now. So four detailed strategies are prepared. Factual survey. Well, Korean government will conduct a survey how SMEs are doing ESG management. And also they will preparing self-assessment tool. Second one is strengthening ESG consulting and training. So there will be very much programs for consulting and training, the incentive or opportunities for academics or consulting firms, and providing incentive to ESG excellent firms. So to give award some firms annually, or strengthening cooperation regime scheme between big companies and SMEs. Third one is still public organizations and institutions' role are very important. So they should lead ESG management to show or initiate to show to the private companies. So strengthening public organizations ESG public announcement and provide and strengthen ESG action plan and evaluation. So this is for related to businesses ESG management proliferation, including public side sectors. Second one is investment. Well, if these companies are doing good ESG management, then a financial institution will invest for those good ESG management companies. And if you do good wrong or no good, they will not invest. So investment is a very fatal for companies. If they stop, lending monies or loans, then company can just broke up. So investment is very important tool to promote ESG. So it can be also divided into three parts. The first one is activating ESG bond and fund. So they need to establish Korean green taxonomy scheme. The taxonomy, EU also announced that they will establish new Green Deal and plus EU taxonomy. Taxonomy means, green taxonomy means, these bonds are green investment, financial products, and these are not. So, for example, if some companies consume the coals a lot, then financial institution will not invest for those companies who use coals a lot because it do harms for environment. That is a sort of like a taxonomy scheme. Second one is providing guideline for social bond. Social bond. Well, social bond is, for example, if you make an association or cooperation network with some disabled persons or groups, or they invest for those minor parts or people, then financial institution provide some funds by low rate. Those are sort of like a social bond. And third one is diversifying financial ESG financial products and strengthening confidence on ESG bond. Those are activating a plan for ESG bond and fund. And also, second one is the Korean government will establish markets autonomous regulation system. Well, you can read it. You can easily understand that. Third one is also public parts role is important. So promoting public sector's ESG investment is important. First one, most important institutional investor in Korea is Korea Pension Fund. Korea Pension Fund is the second largest fund in the world, just followed by Norwegian fund. So they will promote pension funds ESG investment. Well, for private investment institutions, the profit is very important value. So it's quite difficult to just invest on the ESG part. But national fund is different, especially pension fund. So pension funds, they are leading the stewardship code practice in Korea at the moment. And also activating policy finance institutions such as like Korea Export and Import Bank, or well, K-Shore, the only one credit export credit agency where I happen to today in the afternoon. Those institutions' role is very important to promote ESG finance. So Korean government has a big plan to promote this ESG management proliferation and ESG investment proliferation. They are making or establishing ESG information platform, and they will gather statistical reports and then share with the other players in ESG community in Korea. So this is the Korean government's joint statement last August. This means ESG community or strategy or ecosystem will totally change Korea's society next year. So all the public side or private side of Korean community, business community, shall have to prepare ESG management strategy or investment strategy for next year. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your good and very hearty issues on this presentation. Thank you for Professor An. Then it's the discussion session. If there are any questions about this presentation and the before presentation, please freely raise your hands and ask anyone who have a present on this time. Yeah, is there any
I have a question.
Yeah,
Professor An, it's a very naive question. If the regime, Korean government, changes next year or something, then will this ESG issue will be less important? Is there any possibility or something, or it's a really big trend? So if the government regime changes, whether or changes or not, it just goes.
Well, actually, ESG was a sort of floating, abstract, fumes, we couldn't see. And sometimes some academics or professionals criticize that ESG is a sort of like a fraud. The word, greenwashing? Yeah, greenwashing means if some companies do not proper management, like they are not aware of the importance of environment, but they promote their company as a pioneer or leader of green management or investment. So ESG was sort of like intangible, and which has a possibility of fraud to elude some investors. But now, since this statement of Korean governments, every companies, including public and private sectors, and plus financial institutions, should adopt the ESG management system into their strategy and policy. So this should change companies and public sectors a lot next year, because Korean government has a now duty to promote ESG. This is a joint statement by all the ministries of Korean government. So it will change a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Your good answers on the Dr. Gong's questions. Are there any questions on this or the presentations?
Our professor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yes.
have one. I have one question.
So
our,
who's asking a question?
okay,
To
okay,
whom?
I will. Okay, okay,
I
or
cannot,
to
I cannot
okay
see your
to the
face.
professor now, the presenter, just the presenter. Professor, I can't pronounce his name. Okay, so just I'm now I am asking questions. Just I would like to know about the ESG management that issued by the ministry, something like that, right? So one thing I would like to know is, so how the company, both the public and private, respond to this announcement? Yeah.
Well, actually,
Because,
yeah.
because it is a recently issue, right? So
Yes,
how
very recent issue.
A recent issue. So how
Yeah.
how are their response on this issue, Professor?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. Thank you for your question. Well, from the private sector, I cannot see all the response or reaction by the private sector, but I saw, I remember I read one news article about SK Group will make sort of like a ESG platform tool or technology. Probably they are preparing to make some cooperation network with the Korean government, I think, to initiate. Because the Chae-tae-won, chairman of the SK Group, is sort of like a pioneer or leader to, you know, how would I say, propaganda? Well, I cannot see. Yeah, sort of like he's a sort of like a big mouth of ESG. He's very influential now. So that is one reaction probably. And the second reaction from public side, I was aware. I made a special lecture to public side, the staff at the Korean National Human Rights Commission 3 times. One time in Seoul, 2 times in Daejeon, 2 cities. And I heard from one staff of Korean Rail Corporation, one of the biggest, public company corporation in Korea. She said, well, in 2018, NHRC proposed all the public companies should adopt human rights business management system regime. Now ESG. So she asked me, what shall we do? We just now finished to adopt the business human rights management regime, and then, well, now
ESG came again.
management. Yeah, what's the difference? So I told her, nothing different. Yeah. So this is a sort of like a regimes fight between ministries. But I think I recommended that the Ministry of Finance and Planning and Finance is the most powerful ministry in Korea, and they have money, so they have power, and they are insisting ESG investment, ESG. So I think you'd better change from business and human rights to ESG. Yeah. Yeah, this is just my private opinion.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you for the good question and good answers for the CEGs.
Yeah, very interesting question.
Yeah. Oh, it's the time's up, and we must wrap up all the sessions, so presentation. And thank you for all the participants and all the present of these sessions. And let's give all us the big hands for, and we wrap up these sessions. And thank you for all, and thank you for
Thank you.
Thank you for your attention.
See you next time.
See you. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
bye.
you. 감사합니다,
Bye.
교수님.
예,
감사합니다.
고맙습니다. 예.
Okay, thank you very much.